What's up, everyone? I'm here in my NFL Week 5 DraftKings sleeper/value picks. As always, if you have not seen my main picks video, you can check for that link in the description below. In this video, I'm going to be covering guys that I think are being slept on and or present a good value given their DraftKings price. So let's not waste any more time and get to this week's picks. Okay, so first up I have Josh McCown, and I touched on him briefly in the main picks video that I posted on Thursday. But I felt like I needed to elaborate because, once again, I hit on some of those cheap guys. But McCown is probably the most interesting out of all of them because, for multiple different reasons, actually. So first off, he's literally the cheapest quarterback on the slate. I don't think I've ever played the cheapest quarterback on the slate in any scenario. And this particular spot actually makes sense. I mean, he's been 4.5K every single week so far in the season. Has yet to score over 16 DraftKings points on the year. But this is, a pretty good spot for him. I mean, some people are a believer in that revenge narrative. McCown is a former Brown. I'm not really buying that. I really don't have much belief in that, at least in this spot. That said, he's still projecting at a little over 15 points, and because of that, he has the best projected points per dollar on the slate right now. So, as a quarterback, he doesn't need to do too much to hit value. I guess I should note a couple of different things. First off, the Browns are going to get Myles Garrett back, so that is a plus for them. But once again, it's his debut on the season. I don't know how much he's going to play. We still don't even know if Myles Garrett is even going to be good. I think he will be. I definitely recommend you to go to the Browns' Twitter really quickly and look at him running the 40-yard dash they posted today. Dude looks like an absolute beast out there, but we still don't know how good he's going to be with lateral movement and different things like that are obviously very important when it comes to rushing the passer. So, yeah, I mean, I also should mention that McCown is dealing with some kind of shoulder injury. He's definitely going to play, but, I mean, I guess that could hurt his accuracy, what the little accuracy he has. But once again, this just seems like a good spot to stack him with Austin Seferian-Jenkins because Jenkins is going to be the chalk at tight end this week, but I don't feel like a lot of the field is going to have McCown with him. So if you want to get some exposure to Austin Seferian-Jenkins, but still, find a way to differentiate your lineup a little bit, maybe going with McCown to Jenkins is an interesting way to do it. So I definitely think McCown should be on your radar this week. I don't think he's going to explode and have some crazy 30-point game. I don't think that's very probable in his range of outcomes. That said, I think he realistically could get you close, if not over 20 points in this spot. Okay, so next up I have LeGarrette Blount, and at 4,200 and without Wendell Smallwood, not an awful play. Certainly not a guy that I'm thrilled about playing because he's just not the kind of running back I usually play on DraftKings. I mean, he's not going to catch passes. I think the most targets he's had all year in a game is just one. Granted, one of them was for a touchdown, but that's just not something that's going to trend up by any means. I mean, possibly he'll see more targets in this game because Wendell Smallwood won't be playing, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not even thrilled about playing Blount here, but if you need value, this is not the worst flex play you could have. So, yeah, I mean, let me know. Do you guys like Blount a lot, or do you think it's kind of a trap play? Okay, so next up, I have T.Y. Hilton, and there's just not a lot of value at wide receiver, in my opinion, this week. There's plenty of guys in the mid-range that I like, but there's just not many guys sub 5K that I have much interest in at all. Aldrick Robinson was in play before we heard that Marquise Goodwin will start this game, even though suffering another concussion. I'm not even sure how many concussions that is for him in the last year or so. So a little bit surprised that he's playing. But just a quick little note: if Marquise Goodwin does not play, Aldrick Robinson certainly is not a bad play. I'm sure you've already heard him get talked up a little bit. So anyway, Ty, not a bad play here. 6K, number one option. Looks like Jack Doyle is not going to play. He did not practice today due to a concussion. I've said it a bunch. Anytime a player does not practice on Friday, usually a good indication that he is not going to play. So, yeah, I mean, T.Y. moves all over the field. He'll be in the slot a little bit. He'll be on the outside a little bit. There's nobody on the 49ers defensive side of the ball in the secondary that scares me. 26th in pass DVOA. They're allowing the 10th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So I certainly think that T.Y. is not a bad play in GPP or cash games. Alright, so next up I have Melvin Gordon, and as the week has gone on, he has continually become a better play in my eyes. At 6K, definitely cheaper than we have seen him. For a majority of the season, he was 6K last week as well, but I certainly think that if DraftKings knew that Brandon Oliver was not going to play, which we now know. Oliver will miss Week 5 with a hamstring injury that will bolster Melvin Gordon a little bit. He already has a huge, market share of that backfield anyway. That said, Melvin Gordon has not really been 100% these past few weeks. I believe he's dealing with a knee injury, if my memory serves me right. So because of that, I like Melvin a lot. I mean, not to mention the Giants are actually 31st in run DVOA, so that definitely helps as well. He hasn't seen 20 touches since Week 1. He hasn't had more than 17 touches since Week 3. I think this is a good spot for him to see over 20 touches again. He had 6 and 8 targets in Weeks 1 and 2. I suspect we're going to see him in that 5+ target range again, since Oliver will not play and he's looking healthier. All in all, I think Melvin Gordon should be on your radar, not just in GPPs, but also cash games. Like, if you're looking to spend a little bit more at wide receiver and you're just not sold that, 2 of these higher end running backs is the way to go, maybe you could play Le'Veon and fade Zeke and Gurley and then just play Melvin, That would be a good way to save some salary, give you a little bit more to spend at wide receiver, especially now that Aldrick Robinson is not available. He was probably going to be a really popular cash play. So since he's not on the table now, we probably need to find some savings somewhere. So I think Melvin Gordon is actually a pretty interesting option to do that. Okay, so next up I have Jason Witten, and he's a pretty interesting play in my opinion. I'm not overly thrilled about 4.2K for him. So he's a little bit overpriced, especially considering how poorly he's played last few weeks. That said, Witten started off the season really strong, put up 18 points against the Giants, 25 DK points against the Denver Broncos, and then the last 2 weeks he's been held under 2 DK points each. So because of that, I definitely think that Witten is an interesting play because people probably won't be on him. He's a very interesting pivot off of Dez Bryant, So if you have a couple of lineups where you're willing to not play Dez Bryant, it's interesting because let's assume that, Dak Prescott throws for 2 touchdown passes in this game. If one of those goes to Jason Witten, even if, Dez goes off and has 25 DK points or so, it's not going to kill you. Because Witten was able to take one of those away, right? So I always am looking to get guys who, are in a high total game, haven't played well the past few weeks. Nobody's going to be on him. It's a great way to get exposure to this game without having to pay a premium and also without having to pay too much in terms of ownership as well. So you could always still run it back with a couple of Packers as well. So I certainly wouldn't go overboard on him. I certainly wouldn't play him in cash either. It's not even close to my cash game lineup here. But in a couple of GPP lineups, if I was playing 150, I'd put him in 5 or 10. If I was playing a 20 max or something like that, I'd put him in 1 or 2 and just kind of see what happens there, because I certainly think Witten has the potential of catching 2 touchdown passes in just about every game. The Packers are actually a pretty good defensive team against tight ends in terms of DVOA. They actually rank top 5, so not a very enticing matchup in terms of that either, so that could scare some people away as well. So Witten is someone that I'm keeping tabs on, but I certainly wouldn't go overboard on. Okay, so finishing up here with one of my favorite sleepers on the week, and that is Robbie Anderson. So I've played him a couple of times so far this season. One week it worked. In week 3 he put up like 18.5 DK points against the Dolphins, and the other week I think he scored like 6 points or something. It was a bust. But I think Robbie Anderson is in play this week because, first off, the big kind of terminology so far this season for the DFS industry is air yards. And basically it's just a stat letting people know who is being targeted, the most downfield, right? Well, Robbie Anderson is blowing every other Jets receiver out of the water in this category. Right now, Robbie Anderson has 350 air yards on the season, compared to the second place wide receiver on the Jets and Jermaine Kearse, who has 217. Not to mention, Robbie Anderson is actually also tied for the Jets' lead in team targets at 24. Tied with Jermaine Kearse, by the way. His ADOT is the highest on the team by far, so it's just a great way to get exposure to a guy who has potential to have a couple of big plays against a team who is 30th in DVOA against the pass. They're 32nd in DVOA against wide receiver 1s. They are 6th in DVOA against wide receiver 2s. I guess you would consider Anderson a wide receiver 2 or 3, but honestly, I'm taking a chance on Robbie Anderson in a couple of GPP lineups. Once again, do not go overboard, but I certainly like the idea of Robbie Anderson. I think it's a perfect spot to play him. If you're ever going to play Robbie Anderson, this is the week you need to do it, okay? So for me, I'm going to take a chance and hopefully it pays off. Alright, so that's going to do it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave it a like. As always, check the link in the description below so you can follow my Twitch, which I will be live streaming this Saturday night. Not entirely sure which time specifically I will be streaming, but I will be sure to upload a quick little 10-second video on YouTube letting you guys know when. Also, if you follow that account on Twitch, you should be notified when I go live. So you can look for that. Pretty much in that stream, I will go over the entire slate. Kind of just do like a weekly roundup. Maybe we can get a couple of group lineups. I've talked about that quite a few times now, but really haven't got enough people in those streams yet to really make it worthwhile in my opinion. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Later.